I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, everybody. Our first presentation at this workshop will be by Exeter Sal Payon regarding 521 Plymouth Road. And we're going to move so that we don't disturb your slideshow.
See this. Am I better back here? Maybe.
We got
Better than you all. Oh,
Closer to the microphone.
Can we turn the lights on?
Helpful.
is that all right?
Yeah.
buttons. You just gotta hold it.
There we go. Okay. Karen, you asked me to speak to the microphone? Is that what you said?
Yes, when
Where-
we were asking
right
you to
here?
stand,
Okay.
that's the mic, yeah.
Awesome.
That's good,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, I don't know who to address. There's a lot of people around, but thanks for having us in. We had discussed, I think very, very briefly, maybe a year or so ago, this project. We're the owners of, and I work for EQT Exeter. We're a private equity real estate investment company. We own 521, 523, 531, 525, and 527 Plymouth Road. I believe everybody's probably familiar with where these are, but kind of Downing to the Turnpike and the 5 office buildings. Exeter has owned these, I think, for about 10 years. It might be 8, it might be 9, but somewhere in that range. And we've recently, I say recently, it's been 3 years now, recapitalized the ownership into a separate joint venture with 3 other partners. We've struggled historically with overall leasing on the 5 buildings. The impacts of COVID, as I think everybody knows, is kind of
So we're not around door.
okay. All right. So we've struggled with demand. We've struggled with leasing at the property or at the project in general. The impact of COVID, and as I'm sure everybody is very much aware, of folks working from home, working on much more flexible schedules, et cetera, has really impacted this project generally. These are 5 buildings that are all approximately 37,000 feet. They were acquired before I was part of Exeter, but the kind of investment thesis when we bought these was relatively large floor plates that single users could occupy. That size user is really not in the market today, and we just don't see a significant amount of demand or enough to where we've been able to kind of stabilize this investment. Currently, 521 is fully vacant, 525 is fully vacant, 527 is fully vacant. 523 and 31 are about 40% leased, slightly less for about an average of 3 years. So sometime over the next 3 years, those existing tenants have expirations. And the largest tenant in this building has recently told us they're outsourcing most of the operation in this facility. We think the outsource contractor will occupy the building, but we continue to have headwinds kind of across this entire project. Over the last 2 years, we've upgraded 521, 523, 527. I think we spent approximately $1 to $1.2 million. At 521, it was mostly to demo. This building is mostly in what we call shell condition, kind of wide open. what we would say is ready to be customized or built out for a tenant. 523, 531, we've built out smaller suites, kind of semi-finished, where somebody could come in and occupy them quickly, but we continue to struggle with lack of demand. Several years ago, we refit the exteriors of 521, 523, 531 to try to increase marketability, attractiveness of the buildings. They were kind of aging. I can't recall exactly what the investment was in those. It was several $1 million to do that, and we continue to struggle. 525, 527 are less updated, and I would say in not poor from a structural condition, but poor from a marketability standpoint, in relatively poor condition. So I think we were kind of before this group maybe a year to 15 months ago to potentially discuss multifamily redevelopment, or generally the township's appetite for some sort of redevelopment at 525 and 527. The reason we started with those was we had gained approvals, which are allowed by right, for a couple different scenarios here of multi-story office buildings of both 5 and 7 stories, with a very large parking deck component of that as well. As I'm sure you're all aware, there's significant office availability. We don't think the marketability of a 5 or 7 story office facility really makes a lot of sense. There's just not demand for it. We would not pursue that on a speculative basis, and we've been unable to find interest in somebody that would want to come and locate in a building like that. So we had previously come to the group and asked if there might be some receptiveness to developing apartments in this, at that 525, 527 site. I think there was concern over density and generally kind of, I guess, a cool reception to, traditional multifamily apartments, on that site, and just maybe generally today. We've considered other uses. We've tried to identify potential maybe self-storage investors. We've had limited success in trying to get anybody interested or much responsiveness. We don't think this is really viable for retail. That doesn't really solve the traffic issue if we try to bring high traffic back there. So as we tried to exhaust other potential ideas, I think we also talked about an affordable or tax credit housing concept here. That developer was only interested in a very, very small, like 1 acre plus or minus amount of land, out of this entire site that just wasn't viable. So we then started having some conversations with Sal Peon, who I think most of you are familiar with, who developed, I think these are all right, Sal?
Yeah.
The single-family homes here, just to see if Sal would have some interest in potentially looking at this site for either a combination of different build-out or gauge what his interest might be. So our conversations kind of evolved to a potential townhome use, and Sal indicated some interest. So we wanted to come back before the group this evening to kind of present that idea. We have a couple of concepts that we wanted to introduce, and we've had some discussions kind of on a regular basis with different folks at the township over the past maybe 10 to 12 months, just keeping them updated on our progress, keeping them updated on any demand we've had for the project. One thing I would call out, I think the township is familiar with a group that was looking to potentially locate here. That group is Mission Kids. Karen, I know you're familiar with them. I think most of the group is, and I believe they came and presented their use as well. We've actually agreed to terms to sell them this building. So what we're trying to present today would be inclusive of this building being occupied or owned by Mission Kids. That would probably, and I think we could probably close that by the end of July, is kind of the timeline. So we would be focusing on these other 4 buildings. As I mentioned, 523 and 531 have been most improved. So from our perspective, really the kind of the first key is for us to focus on 525, 527, and kind of to that end, Sal has prepared a couple concepts, and I'll probably let you sort of introduce those.
Sounds good.
Okay.
It's good to see some familiar faces and some new ones. Thanks for having us tonight. The area that you're looking at is meant to give you kind of an overall, perspective, of the entirety of the space, not just because of the property that we're looking at here, which is outlined in red, but to look at kind of how uses cross over from section to section of the township. So over here is Germantown Pike. There's Plymouth Meeting Mall. This is Plymouth Road coming up through here. Pennsylvania Turnpike. North Gravers Road, Johnson, and Plymouth. The site that we built, called Plymouth Valley Estates, is over in here. It's on both sides of the Pico right away there. And as I said, the Plymouth Ridge site is right here, the 5 buildings. It's 38 acres. As Tom told you, there's 5 buildings. Total square footage right now is about 185,000 square feet. What is approved could total approximately 354,000 square feet. That's including the 7-story building that Tom said that right now they don't see a market for. But that is what's approved in the township, permitted with NPDES and everything else. One of the things that I like to look at when we see a site is transitions, right? Because they're really important, especially in this area of the county where there's not a lot of land left. There's a lot of talk of redevelopment. There's a lot of talk of repurposing office communities, right? So, Mod Code 2040, which is the county's comprehensive plan, and I'm a little colorblind, so I think that's purple, but if it's more of a berry or a wine color, forgive me, calls this area around the interchange, around the mall, to be a regional mixed-use center. And to give you an idea, and it probably won't surprise you, there's a lot of different uses. There's commercial, there's retail, and because of the intensity of the area, one of the uses they talk about is townhomes. So as we talk about the project, we think that we're on the right track as far as the county's concerned in how they view the site. And then to get specific, so again, here's the turnpike on the bottom. Alexander Lane, which is right here, or Alexander Drive, excuse me, and Sebastian Lane, they're both B residential. And then this little sliver right here is an A residential property, but it has variances and it was redeveloped as an office. They just opened a few months ago. Sussex Square is residential special district, which is an apartment community. This site over here is a multi-use parcel that's zoned live and industrial. You have the Pico right-of-way, and you have the Cooney Brothers piece, and then these are the townhomes at Donna and Ashley Drive. So beyond that, you can see there's a significant amount of residential. Donna and Ashley are a transition use between the Turnpike and Thomas Road and Nursery Drive. Plymouth Valley Estates is a transition use between Plymouth Ridge offices and then the A residential that surrounds it. Sussex Square is a transition between the limited industrial use and the office complex. So Plymouth Ridge sitting between Sussex Square is actually a very unique location in that it would take the zoning from limited industrial to the apartment use to a proposed de-residential townhome use to B to A. So in a planning world, you take your most dense core, right, and then you branch out with less and less density. I think this really fits the logic or the theory of planning in that case. So what we're proposing, let me zoom out a little bit, sorry. Suggesting, maybe I should say. And this is that same red outline property. Here's Alexander Drive. This is 521 Plymouth Road, which is the building that Tom mentioned could be that Michigan Kids property. And then the other four buildings, you can see them kind of lightly hatched in 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we looked at this site, which is now the residential portion only now, about 28 and a half acres. We looked at using de-residential, and I'm happy to say that going through the zoning, there's no text amendment that would be required, there are no variants that would be required. It's a pretty clean plan as far as the zoning perspective is concerned, at least from what we can tell so far. The existing offices I mentioned would remain, and the townhomes that we're showing on that 20.5 acres is 150 units. So it's just over 5 units per acre. Big things to point out when you look at, this is in your packet, so I won't go through every detail, but when it comes to impervious coverage, there would be a reduction. When it comes to building coverage, there would be a reduction. When it comes to green space, there would be an increase. When it comes to open space, there would be an increase. Parking on this plan is probably over what would be required by about 40 to 50%. Again, this was kind of our first blush. One of the things we like to do is look at a site and say, let's not just meet the ordinance and take all the parking spaces and stick them in one corner and say, here we go, we meet the ordinance. But we spread it out around it so it makes functional sense for the people who live there. So there's parking spread out throughout the community. It's pretty heavy. Again, this is the first crack, but if that parking number came down from 147 to say 125 or so, those impervious coverage numbers go down, those green space and open space numbers go up. The biggest thing that we found, and this is in your packet as well, is we did a very quick trip generation study comparing the existing site with the 5 separate buildings and the approved site, which would have that 7-story office building, and our current proposal. And the drop in trips on the AM peak, on the PM peak, and on the average weekday are significant. So far as on the average weekday, it's in the thousands. It's like 2,000 trips per day. So where we're usually walking into a meeting and we have to justify, well, there's more traffic and stormwater runoff and all this stuff. All of these things that we all so commonly hear in a meeting are actually improved. So again, from a land use transitional zoning perspective, there's a lot of logic to it. And from the concerns that we all hear from neighbors and that the Township Engineer's Office has to work so hard on, there's a lot of positives as opposed to trying to figure out why more is necessary. I think big picture, we're trying to look at this as from a logic and from is it a smart development concept. There's a lot of offices in the township, and just in the area in general that are sitting in, would require more comprehensive views at the zoning. Not just for example, like Fountain Road between Hickory and Walton. Big site, lots and lots of buildings, huge acreage. It would take, an incredible amount of planning to go through something like that. This site here, and I'll go back to the aerial, it just kind of fits. Where it creates a smooth transition. Again, if you were planning it today, you could see a planner doing that same kind of idea. So, when you have a busy night, we can answer questions. Happy to give you more information.
Does anyone have any questions?
I noticed how at one point there was a phased plan here, so it wasn't 150, it was 80, and then another phase. And I realized the three phases also, at the time there were three phases, there was the assumption that 521 was also part of the next, so really we were two phases. But this doesn't look like a phase plan, this looks like a road happened all at once. Is that, am I reading that right?
Well, that's certainly the preference. We that phase plan you're talking about, this would have been like that was called phase 1 down by the turnpike. 521 Plymouth Road was phase 2, and then this area over in the corner by Pico and Alexander Drive was phase 3. We simply took that phase line, which was located on this road right here, out of the design. It could be done. I think what happens is when we start to look at, again, not to keep repeating, but the logic of how the zoning can progress, and when you look at that overall aerial, it feels like it makes more sense to look at the whole site. I think we can do a better job for the township with the whole site, but it's certainly not possible.
So just to be clear, I mean, if we were interested in something but not the whole thing, we still potentially have an appetite for something small. It's not your ideal, it's not your ask or your ideal state, but
Yeah, we would. We would have to sit down with Tom and his team and see how that all shakes out, because they have certain needs that they have to meet. I think, and Tom can probably speak to this more than I can, but one of the things that we would really kind of come back with is, while we understand there could be maybe concerns about density or how many houses or how that is perceived, the impact of, I think, the office buildings is real. It's not that they're full and, there's people waiting, or there's, other uses that make a lot of sense here. The issue is that we could do one phase, but then there's empty office buildings. And that would be, my bigger concern when it comes to the residential side is, I think people would be walking in saying, well, okay, what are we going to do with those empty buildings? When we built Cold Point Village down at Butler Pike and Plymouth Road, we went forward and we obtained our commercial tenants early and started those buildings, so that the people who were buying houses, when they asked, hey, what are you doing there? Well, we have a restaurant, we have a salon going in, we have a spa going in, and they knew what was there. When there's unknown, I think that makes the residential buyer a little bit more nervous about what could be there. And I like to say I wear a township hat, but I would worry about, well, if it's not residential, then what's the next choice?
what happens to...
I was just going to say, Lynn, kind of to your point, I think, so when, I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, when we look at this, we just don't think there's enough demand, or likely to be enough demand for 4 buildings. 525, 527 to the right of the plan, those really need to be addressed first. And from a kind of timing and, if you want to say phasing perspective, those would be most ready. And then we probably have 2 to 3 years of term to burn off at 523 and 531. So, exactly how the timing would work, or from a phasing perspective, kind of remains to be seen. But I think, that's kind of how it flows. But, we also kind of worry about, the viability. And again, I mean, those are only 40% occupied today also, even though they're updated. If we start, doing this as a project, what would that impact be on the other two buildings? And we think we're very fortunate to have Mission Kids, as a buyer, for the entire building, or user for the entire building. So,
I think you just answered my other question, which was what happens to 523 and 531 are 40% occupied, but you wait till those leases expire, nothing happens there until those leases expire.
right. Yeah, I mean, maybe we could get to them a little bit sooner, but, we think there's a timeline, that eats up, quite a bit of the existing occupancy anyway. And then it becomes kind of manageable.
Do you see any of the, you said there's more green space sort of allocated with the site than there is today. Would you envision any of that green space being sizable enough that people from surrounding areas could enjoy it?
Potentially.
I mean, I don't mean that they're on the township, but I mean, there's neighborhoods close by, Sussex Apartments, is that little space where we can enjoy?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I would want to say we should get further into land development before we can make those decisions as final. It gets a little bit into just more experience with associations. You have privately owned land that's being used by non-residents or the public. So there's some quirkiness there, for lack of a better description. But, I mean, the site's 28.5 acres, and that's something we can certainly look at and try to figure out as we get further into the process. And I think our hope here is, to be able to continue a dialogue and, to get you guys to support the concept. And if we can, get on the same page with the concept, I think some of those ideas can be worked out.
When you talk about 147 parking spaces, that's in addition to the 1 and 2 car garages?
Yes, that's in addition to 1 and 2 car garages, as well as, I want to say as well as driveway spaces. I have to double check that, but it's definitely in addition to the parking space, garages.
Okay, thank you. And you're talking about 3 to 4 bedroom townhouses, so you're not going to have any smaller townhouses? I think you first, as Lynn had said, talking about a phase 1, 2, and 3, we had some 1 and 2 bedrooms behind the Sussex Apartments and 3 and 4 closer to the Alexander and Sebastian. These will all be 3 and 4 bedroom family.
Yeah, I think the 1 and 2s, Karen, may have been back from when they were talking about apartments here. For our townhomes, we pretty much always build a 3-bedroom unit. And that 4th bedroom references, hey, somebody would be able to finish a basement, or, if you have a volume ceiling in a family room, there might be an option to close that down and have a 4th bedroom if a family want, have multiple kids and maybe live there. It's meant to just say we're going to have some flexibility.
And then you're looking at this to be an HOA, a homeowners association?
That would be our assumption. I know Chris loves taking care of roads, and he's got a great team.
I was going to ask about the trash collection and the snow removal.
But I think that would be our assumption, that we'd have an association that would take care of the open space, the roads, the basins.
Trash collection.
Trash collection, yes. Snow removal, landscaping. Probably some component of the house when it comes to the exterior. People usually take care of their own homes though inside of this.
Do you want to ask questions?
Is the Mission Kids like a done deal?
I got to defer to Tom.
Okay.
We agreed to terms Friday. We're working on a contract. We hope to sign a letter of intent this week while we're kind of drafting a purchase and sale agreement, but that's ongoing. I know they were focused on 2 alternatives. They were kind of waiting on us to be able to kind of see where we were with Sal and see kind of where we thought what this potentially would be. Now that we know, we don't think 521 is part of this plan, we went back to them last week. But they've been focused on this really since last summer, and kind of finally timing worked for their perspective, our perspective. So I'm very confident that we'll get that done.
Sorry, it wasn't relevant to
And Michigan Kids is aware of what we're talking about, so they remain interested.
If you're looking for any other information, there's an existing basin up in here. It's pretty substantial in size. So we did, I'm not going to say we engineered the sketch, but we don't believe this to be throw a bunch of units on a plan sketch and just to get something in front of you. There was some thought put into it for real. Exeter was kind enough to give us their survey. So we know where the storm pipes are, where the sanitary sewer is, where the water comes in. We did some rough calculations based on impervious coverage, on what would need to happen to this basin, and so we're showing ample space to expand it. There's also some little pockets on this sketch for some additional stormwater management, rain gardens, to take care of things in between. So there's some realism to it.
Yeah, and I would say this is the most developed alternative, that we've been able to kind of get to. I think when we looked at multifamily opportunities, we probably needed 250 to 300 units, probably economically, to kind of make sense. I don't think that was, very attractive from the township's perspective. I think ideally, from our perspective, it probably didn't fit as well if there was any, remaining office use. So we think this is a lot more, I guess I would say thoughtful or kind of fully developed in terms of a concept. So we're pretty excited about this. And it just, as Sally kind of mentioned, kind of feels right, from our perspective in terms of, what we might be able to do here.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That'll get covered in the projector part. The motor keeps going, but the old fan has to keep going.
Good to see you all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Trade you. I never did the electrical. Good to see you again.
That's when it was on.
Did you see the FDC's done? The FDC's done.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Next, we will have at our regular meeting, a 30 years of service resolution for Peter D'Alessandro.
I'll take that one.
Nick, thank you very much. Next, we will be announcing a town hall meeting that will be held on May the 29th regarding an ordinance, a plastic bag ordinance. I guess I'll take that one. All right, resolution to read for National Police Week. Any takers for that?
I'll take it.
Okay, thank you. And an Officer of the Year resolution for Andrew Moretti, Detective Andrew Moretti.
I'll take it.
Okay, Lynn, thank you. And a resolution for the Harmonville Fire Company grant, RACP grant. Anyone?
I'll take it too.
Karen, thank you.
One more thing for that category, if it's okay.
Sure.
We had a request from Plymouth Fire Company to have a press release done on the active volunteer firefighter and EMS personnel tax rebate ordinance. So they asked for a press release. And I don't know exactly why, but maybe it's in their efforts with the school district in the attempt, because they're going to go in front of the school district and ask for those school taxes also to be rebated. And I didn't know if you wanted to do that, and if you did, if you wanted me to contact, I don't know if we had Teresa Catalinas. Remember she? Do you know if she's still doing?
Yeah,
I
she
kind of
is.
think she's still
Yep.
working.
She's a communications company.
Yeah, and we've used her in the past. She's a newspaper reporter, a former newspaper reporter, so she's good at press releases. If you wanted to do a press release about this topic, so I just didn't know how you felt about it.
How do y'all feel about that? I'm fine with it.
I feel it's good.
Send it to the
Yeah.
newspapers and the social media outlets and that kind of thing.
Sure.
No downside. I think doesn't it also help us promote that we're doing this to other
Right.
potential volunteer
It
firefighters?
does for recruitment, retention,
Yeah.
Exactly.
that kind of thing. And I know, again, I'm sure it would help them as they go to the school district too.
Yeah.
The county's already done it, the township and then.
All upside, no downside.
Yeah, really good. So we'll ask Teresa to wrap that for us.
I'll take it off the agenda, but yeah.
Take
I'll
it off,
just-
okay,
I'll-
thank
yeah,
you.
I'll reach out to her and see if she can do that for us.
All right, and then we have our National Public Works Week resolution.
I can do it.
Okay.
Kristen?
Okay.
All right. Okay. The street paving bid award, is that, do we vote on that at the regular meeting?
Yeah, you have to award the bid.
Okay, and we'll do that at the regular meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Need a motion, and somebody, sign that
Okay.
to somebody.
All right, I'll take that one and we will vote on that.
Is there anything we need to discuss today?
The no bidder, say what
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, the bids were up, I started saying, no bidder was Glasgow, who actually was the low bid, that they've done the work, probably the last 14 to 17 years, and they were outstanding. They was giving us a great number. Of that 230,000, about 205,000 is going to be out of liquid fuels. And the other 25,000, 26,000 is coming out of the general fund, out of the parks, buildings and grounds department program.
Yeah.
So that would come out of the general fund. That was for the township parking. Police.
Okay, so how much of it is coming out of liquid fuels, Chris?
Approximately 205,000. I estimate the building, the police wagon to be about 25,000.
We're going to use some of the bond money, right? Because it's part of the project, the renovation of the township building on campus there.
Okay.
So,
And you've worked a lot with Glasgow in the past. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the the bid?
My question was answered, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right, next under Public Works, the USIC agreement for marking.
Yeah, I believe you have a contract with the county, USIC, and we talked about that. Pennsylvania Law Calls, we all go to USIC as a professional service. And like I said, I think it's well needed. And also the highway permits that we receive right now, we're paying a portion of that. And it can always, down the road, increase our highway permit costs to subsidize some of this. I estimate it's probably going to be, right now, we're up on the high side because of Rich Pike construction, we're getting more calls constantly. But as that comes down a little bit, I estimate the annual cost will be about $40,000 a year. Mostly significant in that is that we don't have to pay a full-time benefits and we have to do that. Like I said, we probably, I don't know what the number is, but we get about 200 highway permits a year. And so part of that fee would go towards this as well, because that's kind of between inspections and doing the phone calls, that's where that makes sense.
Chris brought this up last month, and then Mike's office reviewed this contract that you have in front of you, and it's good to go. Ready.
We had some changes and certain changes that the company was not willing to make, but we're understanding the township wants to move forward on it and provide Chris some much needed help on this.
Like, one of the things that they didn't want to change was, like, should there be a dispute, this is a national company and you would have to go to Indiana, and Mike's office is not willing, so we'll need somebody else to represent us if we need
Not
to go
licensed. We would be willing if we were licensed.
No, he said he's not going to Indiana. We went back and forth.
He's sending
We'll have to
Alex.
find somebody else.
Pro cliche.
I said, what do you mean, you don't want to go to Indiana? He says, never been. But,
I have family in Indiana. It's a nice place.
So
If there ever is a dispute,
If there's ever a
hopefully there's
dispute,
not one, we're going to
Rudolph
Marion
Forest
County,
is the
Indiana.
catch a
But,
fever
Hope for
game,
no
you know?
disputes.
Yeah.
Caitlin Park.
And we also had the township's insurance carrier review it. I mean, one of the recommendations he wanted was like $2 million worth of coverage, and that would probably cost about $2 million a year. Like, that was unreasonable, in my opinion. But PICO uses them, Aqua uses them, PA American Water, like, everybody uses this company, right? So they've got the manpower, they've got the tools, the expertise, the equipment.
The good thing is all
You're
the
gonna have to-
calls would go directly to them, so they would work at it, and we would have a portal, online portal, and see exactly what we're doing, get a monthly statement. It's just, it's actually a trend. The PVC, as I said, is becoming more difficult, and I think Caddick just called me and said that they actually just got another fine. Something that wasn't their responsibility, but, they're starting to impose fines on people across the board.
And Upper Merion uses USIC, some other municipalities use them. It's-
We're going to start seeing a lot of municipalities starting to go with that.
Sounds like the right thing to do.
Yeah, I guess they can combine it when they're looking for,
Well, that's what
Water,
they
sewer,
do.
electric,
They
I
do
mean-
combine them, right? That's where they get the efficiencies too.
okay, so
We just need
Will we
a
then-
motion for that.
approve the contract at our regular meeting?
Yep.
All right, does anyone want to take that as an agenda item for next week?
Sure, I assume we're not reading the whole contract,
No,
we're just
no,
reading
just
a...
motion to approve
Motion
the
to approve.
contract as presented.
Sure.
Good as summarizing legalese?
One more thing that's not on the agenda, something has been coming up in our trash department that I just wanted to discuss. As you know, we're rid of trash, and as trash has evolved, the trash can has gone from, a 30-gallon trash can, kind of like our recycle bin is 30, actually it's a 32-gallon, not 30-gallon anymore. Our ordinance states that the trash has to be in a 30-gallon can with a 50-pound limit. Now you're starting to see the transition of the carts, the big carts, towers with wheels. We've gone from a 32-gallon cart maybe 25 years ago to a 30-gallon cart, now to a 34-gallon cart, a 64-gallon cart, and the biggest, which is a 96-gallon cart. The 96-gallon carts are pretty typical for like your BFI collections and your J.P. Mascara collections. It's that big toter that has a little bar on it that is designed for mechanical lifters. And again, our ordinance as it is now states that the trash can't be more than 50 pounds. And those toters actually can hold about 345 pounds. And the can itself weighs 40 pounds. So, which by ordinance, that would leave 10 pounds of trash in a 40-pound car. I'm just finding that I just need a little guidance about, because folks are just going out buying and they're saying, hey, my neighbor has a car, I'm going to go get a car. But the difficulty is that we have 8 trash trucks. But when trucks are out of service or being maintenance, we have mechanical lifters on the floor. But even so, the mechanical lifters take up a lot of time. With a 96-gallon cart, by putting them on, flipping them up, trash gets dumped, the cart's got to come back down, the blade has to go, and then it flips up again. So it's time consuming. And so we're trying to figure out, Karen and I were talking about, where do we go with we're hoping maybe we can discourage the 96-gallon cart. I think we can handle the 64-gallon carts, but we still have a weight limit that we have a 4-can limit as it is right now, or a 30-gallon can based on our old ordinance. One cart alone is like 3 cans of trash. So you get, by definition, someone could technically have 4 carts, 96-gallon carts. It's, the equivalent of 12 cans, 12 trash cans. So it's becoming difficult.
And the biggest problem I think right now is we have injured employees because they're lifting cans that are too heavy. So we could buy some more tippers for the 4 trucks that don't have them and get the tippers so all the trucks could lift the cans. But it's going to take more time, and I could foresee us then going to once a week trash, which I know nobody wants, but it will take the guys more time. Again, the workers' comp, they're upset with us for having injured employees because they're lifting too much. But we really could tag the trash and say, you're not following our ordinances. And it's in our ordinance, it's been the same. And I think Chris ran around just to look and see what people were using. So do you know what percentage? I mean, a lot of people still have a 30-gallon can, something equal to their recycle can, 2 cans the same size, like that.
Just the 2 in the neighborhoods, Sebastian and Alexander, that just came, everyone has a car. And it's a 64-gallon car. We're just going through that, and that's where I was at today, following the truck and just seeing the pace. And it's a lot. You think about the 64-gallon car weighs just under 30 pounds. And the 96 are about 40 pounds. So if you throw that in the back of the hopper, you have to stand it up and lift it with your arms straight up and
It's
over
attached.
your head
Yeah.
to get the contents of the trash out. So it makes it's somebody that did it right now. So it's a challenge. And to credit our sanitation group, we asked them about them, and they said, we're this is going back probably last year when we talked about this, and as the call started to evolve, we're going to put a kibosh on this now. And they're like, we want to collect all the trash. We don't want to leave anything. We don't want to tag anything. We want to just get it. That's typically what we do. But now we're just running into it's kind of mainstream that everyone has them. It's really difficult now.
So we haven't yet left little notes behind saying this trash can is too big or too heavy. We haven't done that yet.
We tag the can and leave it too heavy, or I write letters.
But you don't do that every week. We have done it occasionally, right?
Yeah.
But not a lot. The question is, should we enforce our ordinance?
Well, what was the response when you did write a letter or tag someone's can as being too heavy and just not possible?
Typically, we haven't done it really with the cards because we have the mechanical lifters. We've been pretty forgiving at the moment. But as we start getting injuries, it's starting to come away on me a little bit. That, you can see, we have some guys that are not real big in stature, but can, hump one of those big cans in the back of the truck. It's tough.
They shouldn't be lifted up, they're too heavy to lift.
Look like there's about 2,500 stops a day, and so each truck is getting about 300 stops. It's a lot.
I mean,
We just
My-
wanted you to be aware, if
Yeah.
we were to enforce the ordinance, which personally I think we should do. But
Because they have wheels
you'll
on
get
them,
the
I guess,
complaints, we'll get the
yeah.
complaints.
We will, and they'll say, buy lifts and use lifts, and
And we can do that.
we would then have to go to
we'll
once
also
a
say
week.
once a week trash.
Right.
So what is it? It's going to take them,
Exactly.
it's going to take them twice as long. If everybody had one, it would take twice as long to empty the trash, right? Or more, because it's easy to just take a smaller can and, lift it once. Then to put it on the tipper, tip it once, maybe tip it twice. It's like I say, the lid's attached and it gets in the way, and you might have to run the blade in between.
Yeah, I think because they have wheels
Take
on it,
longer.
people don't have a concept of weight.
It's heavy.
Because I know when it doesn't have wheels on it, I've come out to some properties and I couldn't even get it off the ground. So I had wet grass and rocks and when you tag it, they get mad and they come out and you can't even, literally, you can't lift it off the ground. But with wheels, they don't really have a concept. They kind of fill it up as much as they can, roll it out, and don't really know what happens to it there.
So people have gotten upset when they got tagged?
And again, it was, no, because they do, ultimately, they do realize that.
They can't.
They see the tag and they're like, that's not that heavy, and they try to do it. Like, oh, it is.
And I brought it out here, so I go out there and we're trying to lift it, you can't even lift it anymore.
I mean, I don't think we ever want to do anything that intentionally upsets our residents, but I think we have a responsibility to protect our public works employees. Like, that just seems unreasonable.
Because
The
now
cans are like
guys
3
out
times
of
the
work,
size.
It makes the rest of them work even harder,
Right.
right, and longer, because now you're down a couple guys. So that's a problem too. So
Yeah.
we really should
What's
try
the
to
current
avoid the injuries.
Size in the ordinance?
30-gallon can weighs no more than 50 pounds. And like you
It's
said,
about the size that
About the blue
our
bag.
recycle bin
Yeah.
is, 32 gallons.
I mean, I think it's kind of your workers to say, like, oh, don't worry, we'll take the 60-gallon ones, but
they could weigh 100 pounds.
yeah, like,
It's
why
too
would
much.
why don't we just go back to enforcing the ordinance and keep people safe? And I think we have to talk to people. I mean, there's a rational explanation for why. We're trying to keep people, our public works employees safe and healthy and continue to maintain twice-a-day trash pickup. Like, that's what it takes. Like, we all have to contribute to that. I mean, that's my opinion.
I think that would be a good thing to pair in the notice in order to maintain our twice-a-day
Yeah,
trash
I
pickup.
agree.
We need to look out for the health of our employees. And these cans
Yeah.
are too heavy.
Yeah, they're picking up cans that are 300 pounds. Like, they can't keep doing that and stay safe.
I agree with Nick, the tag should be, rather than just, ding, you violate our ordinance,
Yeah.
a little more
Explain
information as
why.
to why. We're not being mean, but we have, several employees have been injured. Our workforce is down as a result. And if we are to go to larger cans, we will have to reduce trash collection to once a week. Because it will slow them down to have mechanical lifters as opposed to human labor.
I think if you tell people why, most people are rational and will respect that.
So I don't know, how much information can you put on a tag?
We'll work on it.
Okay. Yeah. I think we should enforce our ordinance and let people know the result. It's not that anyone's being, not wanting to do their work. It's that we need to keep them safe. And if we go with the mechanical lifts like other townships have, we're going to have to drop to once a week collection because it takes twice as long to attach it, lift it, empty it, bring it down.
Not to mention all the people who don't have those cans would have to now go out and get them if we ever did that, right?
else,
Thank you.
Chris? Thank you very much. Okay. Engineering,
Thank you.
nothing tonight, Lonnie? Thank you. All right. On subdivision and land developments under review. First would be Conocelli on Ridge Pike, a request to withdraw. That's you, Nick? Okay, an extension on, 502 West Germantown Pike, that's you, Lynn?
Mhm.
Outback Steakhouse extension.
It's me.
Aaron, okay. Okay. An extension request by Royal Farms, that's also you, Nick? Is there anything else under there, Karen, under this topic? All right, code enforcement, Mr. Wallace, nothing? Thank you. All right, announce our zoning hearings. Anyone want to take those announcements?
I'll take it.
Lynn, thank
Sure.
you. Okay, Parks and Recreation, Phil.
We have our typical announcements, brought some Plymouth Township Day signs, if anybody would like them, over there. We'll have the save the date for the GCC anniversary next year. And we're applying for another grant for JFK Park. Tried one, had some issues with the grant writer, so we found another one that's really handing out. So it's the same work, it's just a different funding source for the state.
So we already have one grant, right?
No, we don't have it. We
Oh.
didn't reach the timeline to get in for it, so we found another one.
Okay, who's doing the petting zoo at Township Day? Is that Elmwood Park Zoo?
So, no, it's not the zoo, it's a commercial company, breeding creatures.
Someone to give you the resolution.
And we'll all fix something before we sign all these things.
Like there's going to be upcoming events, Township Day.
Yeah, you assigned readers for those.
Yeah. So who wants to read the upcoming events? I can do that. Anyone want to announce Plymouth Township Day?
I'll do that.
All right, Nick, thank you. Save the date for the 25th anniversary. Okay, I'll do it. And the JFK Park Grant Resolution. It's your neighborhood, isn't it? Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Do you want to save the date on the next year or every?
I don't think you need to do it next year,
Like
yeah.
every couple,
I'm
every few months?
I'll bring it up again in 2025.
Sounds good.
Let's get one more. and
One
then-
time?
One
I'm
moment.
fine.
This will be the last one for
Yes,
2024?
yes.
Okay. But then we'll start it up again in January of
Yeah.
25, all right. Anything else for Parks and Recreation?
Thank you.
Okay, the resolution that we're signing, I mean, the gaming thing, what was that?
The thing that went around first, that's not an agenda item.
It's on the agenda item.
And that was on the agenda 2 months ago, or
Okay.
when I was, my annual reminder to draft that.
That one and the small games of chance kind of go
Yes.
hand in hand. So
All right, so that was already,
that's
that was
just
taken care of at a regular meeting
Yep.
previously.
Just need the citizen vacancy announcement given out to somebody.
All right, the citizen board vacancy announcement.
I can do it.
Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
else from anybody to take care of tonight? I'm sorry, Chief, how did I skip you?
No.
I'm so sorry.
I just forgot something. I usually say a few words that we had a canine that passed away that was still active, that canine. If you don't mind, for the animal's sake, Canine Arrows. And just to let council know, we did secure a grant for another canine as a replacement, and we secured a separate grant that covered most of the training. There's $2,000 or $3,000 left over, which I can absorb in my existing budget.
So you want to make some canine remarks at the next meeting?
If I
Put
could.
it on the
Sure,
agenda?
sure. We put that on the agenda, so
Yeah.
about canine arrows. Anything else, Chief?
That was it, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Meeting adjourned. We will have,
Next session.
what's that?
We'll have
Yeah, we'll have an executive
Yeah.
session. Yes, thank you all.
Kelly, real quick.